I've done my graduation from Delhi University. I've been working in the edtech space for the past 4-ish years. I had a feeling in my heart that I am doing really bad. I was just ready to give up because I was like, मेरे को retake देना ही पड़ेगा. I'm glad I did this in the first attempt. Like, I did not want to go for another one. If I had to, I would have. But I'm happy. I'm feeling great. The transformation that you're talking about also happened in a smaller time period than it usually happens for most people. Like, most people have more time. Made no mistakes. Like, I had 100% accuracy in CR. Getting into the zone of studying in itself was like a big task.
Hi, Ridam. Thank you so much
Hi.
for taking the time out, and congratulations on your 740.
Thank you so much.
It's a massive transformation, depending upon which mock we take as the basis. One mock in which you scored a 640, other mock in which you scored a 580. It is a 160-point improvement,
Yeah, definitely.
I think it's a story of grit and determination to get to that 740.
It is.
And
It is.
it is, right? Congratulations again. How does
Thank
it
you so
feel?
much. I feel relieved, and I definitely feel great because it the transformation that you're talking about also happened in a smaller time period than it usually happens for most people. Like, most people have more time. Although I took the mocks kind of earlier, I did not start preparing very seriously until later. And I
September.
had until September. So I took the mocks, the official mock in which I scored 640, end of May. And I think 3 days later, I took the Sigma X mock where I scored 580. And then in September was when I started preparing verbal from e-GMAT. So that from that point to getting to this score in that time period, it was a lot of work. Like you said, grit and determination. It was definitely. But I'm glad I did this in the first attempt. Like, I did not want to go for another one. If I had to, I would have. But I'm happy. I'm feeling great.
Yeah. And what a journey it has been, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So we'll talk about that. But first, I would like to hear something about yourself. It would be good if you could share something about what you do. When did you think of GMAT, kind of a thing?
Right. So I'm from Dehradun, by the way.
Pretty
This is
place.
Yeah, it's a place in the lap of Himalayas in India. And before this, I mean, I've done my graduation from Delhi University. And I did my undergraduate studies in economics. But right after that, I was employed with an edtech in like a content, like creation sort of role, where I wasn't just creating content, but like looking at content development on a whole. And I worked there for about 3 years. And again, then I moved to another edtech, which is a startup. It's called Things Education. Here again, I'm sort of in an academic role, but it's not just content creation. It's creation of curriculums, programs for schools, innovative programs which kind of are based on design thinking and stuff like that. So yeah, I've been working in the edtech space for the past 4-ish years. And interestingly, in my first company, I was the content specialist in English.
Oh.
So I used to create questions. So I used to create assessments, and I used to create multiple choice questions for grades 3 to 10 for all sorts of boards. Like in India, we have CBSE, ICSE. We also have IB, IGCSE. So I used to create those questions, and I was so coming to how I thought about GMAT. I mean, being in this space for like 4 years, I had sort of, I mean, I like the industry, but
Mm-hmm.
I think I wanted to move to a more managerial role.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I also have some entrepreneurial plans.
Okay.
So for that reason, I wanted to, you know, I started thinking about an MBA. And,
Mm-hmm.
when you start thinking about an MBA, the first step is to do the GMAT. So yeah, that's how my GMAT journey started. And in
Okay.
the beginning, am not I am a little ashamed to say that I thought verbal is going to be on my fingers
That
because
was to be my question, as in,
yeah.
for somebody who was in that space, how easy or difficult was it? Was GMAT verbal? What
um
did your mock say?
yeah, so I mean, before the mock, I signed up with this Indian company, Indian
Mm-hmm.
sort of career prep company. Not so like e-GMAT is focused on GMAT, and
Mm-hmm.
it's not starting to work on GRE and other tests. But this was a company that focused on everything career
Mm-hmm.
related.
Mm-hmm.
They weren't like GMAT specialists, but I signed up with them and I had their online lectures.
Mm-hmm.
So I attended all of their lectures for verbal and
Mm-hmm.
for math, like quants. And I did the sheets that they gave. I did everything. And I was like, okay, let me give my mock now. I'm kind of prepared. I did not practice questions at all.
Mm-hmm.
I did want to make that mock be sort of not extremely prepared, but I did revise a lot of
Mm-hmm.
concepts. I did understand concepts that I did not remember at all or did not
Mm-hmm.
know about. And then that's when in like end of May I gave the mock, like the official GMAT prep mock, and I scored a 640.
Okay.
My verbal at that time was 34
Mm-hmm.
and quants was 44, and 34 mock score, like first mock score, is considered good. It's considered good, right?
Yes,
But
yes.
for me, I was so sure that I wouldn't even need to prepare mock because I have been on the other side, right? I have been that person who has created options that are going to confuse the kids, or
Mm-hmm.
if they have like misunderstanding, misconception about some particular concept, this is the option that they're going to use. I've
Mm-hmm.
been that person who understood the psyche behind a test,
Mm-hmm.
right? And for me to know that, okay, this is not like 90 percentile performance,
Yeah.
I realized that GMAT tests so much more than what I was testing, like
Mm-hmm.
school kids. Like,
Yeah.
I realized that why GMAT is GMAT and why this is the test that MBA schools use as a
Mm-hmm.
benchmark
Mm-hmm.
to kind of see where the students' aptitude is,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I mean, I gave that mock, and I remember I gave that mock around like 10 p.m. at
Mm-hmm.
night, and then
Mm-hmm.
the whole night I was like, I have to do something about this. I need to start working with some other prep source or something like that. That was the day I subscribed to GMAT Club for the first time,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and that night itself, I think I came across e-GMAT through the reviews and
Mm-hmm.
everything. And then I went onto your website and I saw a lot of videos where people were talking about the meaning based approach, the pre thinking
Mm-hmm.
uh, approach, and all of that. Um, I think it was the whole idea of a meaning based approach that kind of made me feel like, okay, this is something that I want to go
Mm-hmm.
with,
Mm-hmm.
because as a person who's tested other people
Mm-hmm.
in grammar rules,
Mm-hmm.
grammatical skills, having been creating content in that space, I was sure of those rules. Something was still missing for me, right? I wasn't looking at the meaning as such. So the whole sound of the meaning-based approach and all of that, I was like, okay, this is something that would help me. And I think I also saw one of your free webinars. I attended one of your free webinars, and that really helped me. That made me feel like I'm going to learn something that I don't already know. Being at a place where I was already doing decent in verbal. So I remember I booked like a free consultation with someone from your team. And in that meeting, we discussed how e-GMAT could help me. And, the person also showed me a case study, like an example of a person who had a very similar score to mine. And what they did to get to the point where I think that person scored 750, towards the end. And they also had like a similar time period of like 2 months, 3 months. And also they started off from like a 35, 34. So I was like, okay, that makes sense to me. The consultant also told me to give the Sigma X mock so that we could get like a very detailed idea of where I am, like topic wise, because the mock only gave us the breakup.
Overall score.
Yeah, the overall verbal quant score. So that was when I gave the Sigma X mock. I scored 580, I think. But I think giving the Sigma X mock was really important because it made me realize that I was by the way already at like a 90 percentile in RC. And I think I was at 70 something in SC and like 50 something in CR. So I realized, okay, you know what? I need to work on these two. This one's okay. So that detailed analytics I got from e-GMAT is very important. And I think I signed up for e-GMAT right away after that.
Okay. So, so let's talk about that, right? 34, 35, 36, that was the range you were in, with RC being good. But to improve to a 41 in about 2 months, I know that you seriously started working only sometime in mid-September, and you had your test early November. And we'll talk about the test date later. But so to be able to do that within that limited time is definitely a great achievement. Okay. So tell me, how did you go about doing that now that you understood that you were at this particular ability and you really need to focus on SECR? How did you go about preparing to improve your score?
I think I signed up for e-GMAT in June or July, I think. But like I said, I did not start preparing seriously until September. Getting into the zone of studying in itself was like a big task for me. But by the time September came, and my initial 2-month subscription had expired, so I got an extension. And when I got the extension, I went in with the mindset that, okay, I'm going to take this step by step. I'm going to spend 3 hours a day on this. And I'm going to, like, I was prepared to do whatever the course asked of me. So I have other friends who have used e-GMAT, and they've all scored really well. One of my friends has scored 760.
Oh, wow.
And he told me about how how the the course is going to be. He had definitely a different way of going about it, and I thought that I will also go about it like that. For example, he preferred to go through the files faster and attempt more questions. I wanted to take my time and understand concepts and then come to the point of taking questions, like doing questions. I had thought that I will also do what he did, but when I started the course, I realized there were so many new things that I was learning. And like I did not expect to not know so much in sentence correction because uh because of my job,
Yeah.
because that's what I was working on. We used to research so much before creating questions. I thought I had the rules done and dusted, and I did, but there was so much that isn't taught during your school years.
Yep.
It's not a part of your at least in India, it's not a part of the Indian curriculum. So when I started doing SC on e-GMAT, I started learning new things. I started looking at sentences in a different way. The whole, so it's the meaning based approach, right, that I was talking about. When we started working on it from the point of master comprehension, I just started looking at reading differently.
Okay.
And trust me, I am also a person who has been reading books from the age of 10. So it was just surprising but extremely helpful. Started off with master comprehension. Again, like I was very diligent about following the process. They said do master comprehension, then come to SC. I was like, okay, I'm not gonna mess with that. I spent some time doing master comprehension, and from the get-go I was making notes.
Yeah.
So everything that I was learning or was worth noting down was worth remembering, coming back to at a later point. I was making notes for everything. There were sentences. So e-GMAT has a lot of examples in the files. So in the examples, they would also show the common mistakes that people make and why they're wrong and what can be done to correct that. So I would like, if that would be like too much writing down, I would literally just take a screenshot, get it printed the next day and stick it in my notebook. But I made notes for everything. Yeah, I loved the master comprehension and the SC portion of e-GMAT because like we were talking about the meaning based approach. The whole idea of breaking down a sentence into smaller portions, reading the portion, then assimilating what it's saying, and then moving ahead only when you've understood what it's saying. That whole process was very important. To learn that process from e-GMAT, I think it changed my game because, like I said, I already had the rules down. And I realized that just grammatical rules is not going to get you the score in verbal in GMAT. So I followed that process diligently for all of the topics.
So tell me, with SE, I know that you were at a moderately good level because with the kind of background you had. But what changed, from being moderately good to being a 90th percentile plus kind of an ability in SE? What was that? What is it that changed in your approach of solving SE questions that really helped you get there?
Yeah, it was the meaning-based approach. I started looking at questions differently. I think.
So what was the earlier approach?
Yeah. So earlier, what I would do is I would read the sentence, and I don't think I spent as much time reading the sentence I should have, as much as I should have. And I would read the sentence and I would just directly move on to the options. I would read the options, and if there was a glaring, like a grammatical mistake, I would rule it out. But if there was no glaring grammatical mistake, I would be like, okay, this one looks correct. And I would go on to the next options expecting them to have glaring mistakes. And I would probably notice mistakes in like one or two other options, but usually I would be left with 2 or 3 options which are grammatically fine. And then I would just like go with whatever made sense to me without
what sounds right.
What sounds right. Yeah, exactly. What sounds right. And I would actually go with them very confidently without realizing that I was wrong, that I was making mistakes all this while. And also I learned a lot of these tricks with the previous online video company that I prepared with, about if the underlined portion starts with a word, just go to the options, look at the words.
Okay, it's like a hacks to solve SE questions.
Look at the last words, and then if it's a subject verb agreement question, and if has is correct, then rule out everything that has have in it. And it sometimes the options would change the subject itself, right? If earlier in the original question, in the underlined part, the subject is singular, then it should be has. But maybe the original question makes a mistake there and has have. If I rule out all the options that have, and the correct one is one of them, because they've changed the subject, they've changed the number of the subject, I'm just making a stupid.
You basically rejected all your answer pool right away.
That's just stupid. Like, if subject verb agreement is something that I understand really well, but I choose to go with that hack, choose to use that shortcut, I'm just making a stupid mistake. And so these were things that e-GMAT taught me, like why it was important to understand the meaning before jumping into the options. Because until you understand what you're supposed to be looking for in the options, you are going to make these mistakes. And I think it was very important in cases where the correct answer was option A. Because if I'm not understanding the meaning, and I'm also, the process was like this, like you break down the sentence into smaller bits, you understand the meaning, you understand what the intended meaning is supposed to be, and then you go ahead and you identify the errors. And you check that, and in e-GMAT's files, they had this list on the side in the application files. It was like subject verb agreement, then verbs, then pronouns, then modifiers, and they would just tick mark everything that looked all right and just put like a little red cross that didn't look all right. That list I memorized and I used it in my questions, because oftentimes I would miss out on say modifiers. Like, I wouldn't even think about it, and then when I would go to the solution, I would be like, oh yeah, I knew this is an error, I just did not look at it. So the whole process of understanding the meaning first and then identifying the error that is there in the original sentence and then moving on to the options is what I think brought me from 70 percentile to the 90 percentile. And it definitely helped me with questions where option A is the correct answer. I think those can get really tricky.
I think CR was a different story altogether, right? You were
Yeah.
starting out at a 50th percentile kind of an ability there. And I know you told me that you did not make a single mistake in the final test in
Yeah.
the GMAT.
Yeah.
So, from that kind of an ability to 100% accuracy, tell me how was the journey? Because it must not have been easy because CR requires a very disciplined thought process. Not that SE doesn't. CR also
Yeah.
requires. And I know that you were a little skeptical towards the beginning because, just that process was taking you so long. So, what changed? What helped? And tell me.
So, so yeah, CR is like all credits to e-GMAT for CR because I was my mind was blown when I looked at my ESR and it said that I made no mistakes. Like I had 100% accuracy in CR. That is just crazy,
Yeah,
right?
it is.
Because if I'm at a like V41, I must have solved some pretty hard questions in CR as well and got them correct. So, like you said, it was very difficult for me at first because like I said, I was prepared to follow the process because the process worked really well for me in
Mm-hmm,
S.
mm-hmm,
Um, I and I was following the process of doing the analysis of the argument first, spending the most amount of time in doing the analysis of the argument. I remember when at first I would solve CR questions with e-GMAT, I would make a lot of notes. Like I would
mm-hmm,
fill this entire section with
mm-hmm,
like notes because it was very important to focus on details.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Yeah, um, a word here and there could just change what the correct answer could be. So I was thorough with that, but I was extremely skeptical because I was taking like about 5 to 6 minutes to do a single question. And I was like, okay, this is great. I'm getting it correct. Even if I'm getting it wrong, I'm understanding what it means, why I made a mistake, all of that. But like, this is not going to help, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because I can't spend 5 to 6 minutes doing these questions in a timed
Yeah.
environment, in a timed test. And even if so, e-GMAT says again and again and again, if you're taking time, that's fine. That's how it's supposed to be. When you get used to doing these questions again and again, then your time is going to come down. All of that, and I mean, it is a little difficult to believe that when you're in it, you get anxious, you have those doubts. And I was like, even if my time does come down, how much is it going to come down? By a
Mm-hmm.
minute, by a minute and a half, by 2 minutes? But I was taking like 6 minutes for some questions.
Mm-hmm.
I finished the whole CR course. I think my personal weakness was assumption questions.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Good thing is that the assumption questions process, this way to solve assumption questions, is used almost in all of the rest of
Yeah.
the
Except the inference, maybe then
yeah,
it just
yeah,
strengthen,
yeah.
evaluate all of them use. Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, when I was doing the assumption module, I did not have the best performance. But what genuinely happened was after doing questions again and again and again and again, it did become second nature to me.
Mm-hmm.
So I
And
wasn't.
when you say, sorry to interrupt you here, when you say questions again and again, was it on the platform? Was it just the files, or were you also practicing other questions then?
No, I wasn't at
Just
that
the
time
files.
practicing any other. Yeah, I did not have the time or even the patience to. I
Mm-hmm.
was just doing the questions that are there on the e-GMAT
Files.
platform
Yeah.
or in the files itself,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
the application files or the concept files or the practice
Practice
test.
quizzes. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So that was all that I was doing, but I was doing them very, very seriously.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I was trying to, understand, take as much as I could
Mm-hmm.
from those files. So yeah, there was like, I got a lot of practice from that in itself. I realize now that I was, by the time I completed the course and reached the point of cementing, and I did the cementing, I was really anxious before the cementing day. I was like, okay, kal mujhe cementing karni hai. But I was like, I don't know how I'm going to do. And I don't even know if I'm going to get through cementing in one go. But I did.
And then
I did
standard
not.
timing in that.
Yeah, it wasn't just like that. I did it in time. The accuracy was good. I think I did well in
Mm-hmm.
cementing. And I remember mailing you that
Yes.
I don't know how I did this, Rashmi, but I'm through cementing.
In
What
standard
do I
time.
do?
I remember you
Yeah.
having mentioned that because, yeah. So how did you go, you said you were taking 6 minutes while doing the stage one, as in while doing the files and application files. Then
Yeah.
what changed? How were you able to finish a timed quiz within
I
that
think
time?
Right. I think what happened with solving questions again and again using the process, I
Mm-hmm.
think it's very important that I did not let go of the process for
Mm-hmm.
even one question.
Mm-hmm.
So I wasn't just practicing CR, I was practicing CR using that process of
Thinking.
pre-thinking the whole procedure. Um, and just doing that again and again and again, I got to a point where I was making less notes,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and then I did not even need to make notes anymore,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
because after practicing so much, my brain was used to using that process. So it, whatever notes I was making on my scratch pad at first, I started doing that in my head.
Mm-hmm.
And on the actual GMAT day, I don't think I made a lot of notes in verbal at all.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um, so I think that's what changed, and that's what finally ended up reducing the time for me. And I think there would be questions that I would do in like a minute.
Mm-hmm.
Uh,
That's
there
a
would be
great
questions.
speed for CR.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, there would also be questions that I took longer in, but there were questions that I
Mm-hmm.
was able to do quicker.
Mm-hmm.
And accuracy was there. Like ESR
Mm-hmm.
says, my accuracy was 100%.
Yes.
So I
Yes.
think that process really
So,
helped.
so these questions that you were able to solve in less than optimal time, how confident were you of getting, was it like you were hurrying up or you were that confident that this is the right answer and that's how you're able to mark
I
it and move ahead?
I think I was, whenever I marked like an answer, I was confident.
Mm-hmm.
I would not mark an answer unless and until I knew my personal reasons for doing it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I think in hindsight, that was something that hurt my scores in a mock or even on the GMAT day a little bit. Although I did try to kind of um, guess when it was taking me too
Time.
long,
Yes.
but in the practice, at least, I wouldn't mark an option unless and until I knew why the others were wrong and why this one
Mhm.
was correct.
So that
That they,
time saving was not at the cost of accuracy or, lack
yeah,
of confidence.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
That's
yeah.
that's really great. This is a congratulations on that. Uh, a system is as good as the person who uses it, right? So that is where it is. Really kudos to you. And Rhythm, I know we've worked together since you joined, and I know that you haven't solved a ton of questions, right? We've been very economical with the number of questions you've
Yeah,
solved,
yeah.
either on the platform, outside you solved a little OG questions, but not much. I think overall you might have solved some 300 odd questions. Okay. But you were able to achieve this kind of a transformation, solving just these many questions. How did you make it happen? What was the process that you followed that allowed you
Okay.
to optimize on the limited number of questions that you worked on?
I think there are 2 points that I would like to bring focus on. with respect to this. One is that I didn't need to solve too many questions because I was making the most of the questions I was solving. Whatever questions I was solving, I was making sure I was using the process. I was making sure that during the practice phase, I wasn't guessing. I had my reasons to answer the way I answered something, so that when I did analyze, like did look at the solution and
After the quiz, as in the strategic review.
yeah, when I would do the review, I would be filling out my error log. I would know how I solved it because I didn't just guess, right? I tried to use some logic and I would know exactly where I went wrong. I think that was what helped me get to the score without solving too many questions. Because I feel it is important to focus on the learnings than getting practice, because there's no point if you're making the same mistakes again and again in 10 questions versus you make the mistake in one question, you learn from it, and then you don't have to do those extra 9 questions. So I think that I kind of, it helped me. And given that I did not have like 6 months to prepare or something like that, I only had 2 months, and I did spend like 80% of that time in understanding, learning the concepts, building that knowledge, building that ability. It helped me. I was able to get to my score without practicing too much.
Okay. So Ridam, can you tell me the value of error log? Because you did mention error log. How important was it in the incremental improvement that you need to do when you reach a certain stage?
Right. Yeah, everybody talks about the importance of error log. So I did take it seriously, but personally, the value that error log brought for me was the patterns that I was able to identify in the mistakes that I was making. So something, for example, in RC, I would make mistakes in the negative questions that we have. Which of these is not true, or which of these cannot be said? So I would read the statement, and somewhere down the line, when I'm going through the options and referring to the passage or something, I would forget that this is a not question, and I would actually select an option that would be correct. And I made that mistake multiple times, to the point, and error log obviously helped me identify that, because on the day of GMAT, I was like, okay, whenever I come across a not question, I have to pause and make a note of it in my scratch pad, or just be like super aware so that I'm not making this particular mistake again and again. It's like, I know how to answer this question. I've just like, it's a pattern in my mistake. Another one of these mistakes would be that I would somehow, in a particular like, this is related to quants, in a particular absolute value question, I would always read the greater than sign as the less than sign or something like that. And I mean, it's just like, you wouldn't even think about that.
A lot of people would just put it as silly mistake and just forget about it.
Yeah, but clearly there was something that my mind was doing when it was coming across such questions, that it was making that mistake again and again and again. So error log made me conscious about these patterns in my mistakes. And I think that was also what finally kind of helped me get to my score in such a limited time, because like I said, I solved less number of questions, but I made the most out of them. I made it a point that I analyzed them properly. I identified where I went wrong, and I would also come back to those uh, questions, come back to those learnings at a later point. And oh, I also remembered what I had to say earlier. The second thing that helped me a lot to get to my score with limited number of questions was the help that got from e-GMAT, the strategy consultation, that whole thing. I don't know if people know this, but like it's totally free. It's not like you have to sign up for a different program to receive that help. I think somewhere after my SC or CR, I shot out a mail to the support in e-GMAT, and that's when I got in touch with you. And you've been there throughout my journey for the like a month and a half before my actual exam. And whenever I would falter, I would reach out to you, and you would tell me, you would literally send me like a table of what I should do step by step, with even things like where you would say, do 10 questions of this section, of this time, of this difficulty level, and right after this, revise your error log, then revise also the error log you did for those two quizzes. And like it was that detailed, and I followed that to the T, because I mean, you must remember that I would reply to you and be like, I did this and I did that, and here is where I faltered, and this is where I did well, and all of that, because I was able to. So the questions also that I practiced were very focused in terms of the difficulty level, the sections I was practicing. I remember you mentioned to me that, Ridam, assumptions is a topic that you're not doing as well. You have, past cementing, but I am thinking before you move on to RC, you should go back to these particular files and do this question, do this quiz, and then just let me know how you do. And I did exactly that. And it was true that out of all of the CR sections, assumptions was my weakness. And I think it was through the e-GMAT analytics that you were able to figure that out. I also remember you mentioned that I was taking longer in bold-based questions. So I also practiced those to make sure that I wasn't spending too much time. I was getting enough practice for that. So yeah, this was the error log and the guidance that you gave me in terms of what it is that I should actually practice. These two things were what helped me get to my score.
Really happy to be helpful.
Yeah, definitely. That was something that I don't think a lot of other prep courses provide. And even if they do, they probably charge separately for it. And you would think that if it's like a free service, it's not going to be like that detailed, but it was extremely personalized. I don't know how it is in the back end, but I think you look at my performance.
The data, because you do solve all the questions, and the questions give us a lot of data, right? It's out there, it's available for everybody. If you do go through it, you will also be able to figure out the patterns, all these things. But I'm sure for a student who is doing it on a limited time and is so much into the preparation, this is an additional thing. So that is where we come in, of course, because we see so many accounts, we can draw maybe more inferences out of the data. But yes, the data is there, because we capture from the time taken to the kind of difficulty to the kind of question types. All this gets recorded, and yes, that really helps us structure the plan. But
I don't think I ever figured out how to use the analytics. So I'm glad that you did that homework for me and told me what I had to do.
Yeah, but yes, I think the desire to help a student succeed just runs in the DNA of the company. Okay, and that's where, all this comes from. So that said, Rhythm, I know that you were short stretched for time, and you wanted to give the test on 7th of November.
Yeah.
Uh, and that's what we worked towards. And then we realized, okay, there is still some more stuff to do. And you are willing to postpone the test date.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Yeah. So I think that came up because I couldn't study for a week because I contracted dengue,
yeah.
and I think um, that was also, so I reached out to you for that advice as well. Like, what should I do? Should I just go ahead and give my test and see how it goes, and then maybe consider a retake, or should I, reschedule my test? How should I go about it? I remember you suggested giving a few quizzes and judging my performance, all of that, and doing, just going through all of that. I had then decided, and you left it on me. It wasn't like you said that you should reschedule or you shouldn't reschedule. You just gave me some guidance, and then I personally decided that okay, I want to move my test date by a week. I did that, and I think that was really helpful because I was able to squeeze in mock tests, official mock tests in that time period. And I think mock tests are like, you cannot go and sit for a full GMAT without giving at least like 2 to 3 mocks.
Yes.
Um,
So mocks also were a journey, right? It was
yeah.
up, down, up. So 760, 710, 760. So what happened in that 710 attempt?
Yeah, so I think the 760 first 760 that I got. So this is after I had done all of my preparation. I had followed everything that you asked me to do, quizzes and everything to the T. I was done, like I was prepared. I gave the mock test, which was it was like GMAT prep number 2. And I feel like it was slightly easier than the other mocks, or even the real GMAT that I gave at a later point. And also, I went in with the mindset that I will be mindful of the time that I'm spending. I will do this, I will do that. Even you gave me pre-mock advice as well. Do this quiz, do these many questions, revise this, and then do the test. And in the test, I gave the mocks exactly at the time when I would give my actual GMAT. I took 8-minute breaks, and I did not have even a water bottle with me and all of that. So I made it a point that all of my mocks were in like as real test conditions as I could make it. And when I did the first mock in that mindset, I went through it, and it was good. It went well. I was able to finish the test in time as well, and so I got a 760, and I was so happy. I was glad. 2 days later, when I gave the test, I think I had become a little complacent, and I think I spent about like 6 minutes on like 6 minutes each on 3 questions in
That's
quad.
18 minutes.
Yeah, and also a lot of time on some questions in verbal. I couldn't let go of the questions, and in some place I had, like, because I did not struggle with time in the first mock, I felt like, okay, I'm probably not taking that long. I didn't realize, basically, I didn't even think about it. I got a 710 in that. But I remember feeling like, okay, this is exactly what I needed. I did not need a 760, 760, 760. I needed that 710 dip because that made me realize that I needed to work on my pacing strategy.
Like a wake-up call.
Wake-up call. Yeah. That was very important. I remember reaching out to you and you gave me tips on how I should use like a guessing strategy, on what questions I should use a guessing strategy. I think that advice was very important for me because I did not there were some questions that I would just get attached to, and just realizing at what point I should take the decision of guessing and moving on, something that I needed to know. So you gave me all of that advice. And yeah, 710 was majorly a time issue. So I practiced, I did quizzes, and when I finally gave the mock, which was like just 2 or 3 days before my actual GMAT test, I got a 760 again.
Yeah.
The 710 and 760, the last two mocks were GMAT prep mocks 5 and 6. So I was also sure that I was I was attempting questions that are going to be the closest to the real GMAT. Like not like GMAT 1 and like prep test 1 and 2 are not close to the real GMAT, but I feel like the format of the questions evolved for the later GMAT prep tests. So yeah, that was my mock journey.
I think what runs across your prep journey, your mock journey, is how critical you were of each of the question you answered, each of the quiz you took, the mock you took, and how you took that learning ahead. I think that's the common factor that binds all this together.
Yeah.
And yes, so then we come to the D-Day. It's not like everything went smooth on that day, right? So you want to tell us about that?
Yeah, y'all gave me a list of things that I should do like one day before the GMAT test, and then just the day before the GMAT test, just relax, don't do much, all of that. Gave me all of that advice. I followed it to the T.
Yeah.
And the GMAT test day came. Just before the GMAT day, all I did was revise. So I had made a list of the common mistakes I was making from my error log. That was very helpful. So I just revised those mistakes. Like, for example, one example that we talked about, whenever I come across a negative, like a not question, pause, make a note of it, remember that when looking at options. So that, I revised that, and I watched like 3 movies that day. Just relaxing. And I was at the test center. It was an offline test. I was at the test center like around 1.5 hours before the start time. They call you like half an hour before, but I was like 1.5 hours before. I sat in my car and I practiced like 4 verbal questions, 2 SC, 2 CR. I don't think I practiced quants because I was like, I will be doing verbal first. So quants, by the time I do quants, my mind will already be warmed up. So I did my warm up and I went into the test center. I gave my attendance and everything. They asked me to wait, and it's a small test center in Gurgaon. So it had about, I think, 6 systems. So there were 5 other people there waiting. It was in a university, and because we were like half an hour before the actual check-in time, I was prepared that we'll be waiting for half an hour. But after that half an hour, we were asked to wait for 15 minutes. Then after that 15 minutes, we were asked to wait another 15 minutes. And just like that, all 6 of us were waiting for an hour.
Oh my God. So that must not have been easy, right?
That wasn't easy at all because I entered the test center with a particular mindset, right? I just warmed up, I did my questions, and I'm Oh, by the way, I made a playlist of like songs, like motivational songs, like Eye of the Tiger and all of that. So I hear those songs on the way, and then I'm just entering this test center, ready to rock it, and then just sit and wait.
Yeah.
And you don't even know at what point the test will start because
Mm-hmm.
they did not give us a clear, answer on that.
Mm-hmm.
You're just like sitting and waiting. And that anticipation game can be a little detrimental to your performance. It can create a lot of anxiety. It changes your mindset from, say, I'm gonna rock it, to why is this happening? When is it going to start? Those questions start coming into
Yes.
your head. And no matter how prepared you are, there is a little bit of the test day,
Anxiety.
luck, nerves, like a combination of all of that
Mm-hmm.
that comes into play into your final score.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it started 1 hour later, and we were all like, it wasn't just me, like all six of us, we
Mm-hmm.
could see we were already kind of tired.
Mm-hmm.
If you would have spent doing something, that 1 hour doing
Yeah.
something, it would have been different. But if you're just sitting and waiting,
Mm-hmm.
it's just like we were all drained. But we started off the test. I so that was problem number one on the D-Day. Problem number two was like, I don't know if the others faced this, but on my screen, the screen would go like, it would pause again and again, and
Mm-hmm.
there would be like a circle saying that, just we will, it's reconnecting, it will go back
Mm-hmm.
again. And that happened about 5 to 6 times in both sections.
Mm-hmm.
Even in IR that happened.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so that also breaks your flow.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure if the clock was still running when that was happening. I am suspicious that it was, because I had a feeling that I was doing well time wise. I made a grid on my scratch pad that after 5 questions I should be around this time mark, after 10
Mm-hmm.
questions
Mm-hmm.
I should be around this time mark. So I was kind of close to that mark, but somehow in both verbal and quants, when there were like 4 or 5 questions remaining, I had like what, like a 2 minutes or something,
Mm-hmm.
and I just couldn't make sense of it. Like I was like, what is happening? What am I doing? I'm just making the time mistake that I made in my 710 mock again,
Mm-hmm.
and I would, of course, when there was just 2 minutes remaining, I would then quickly like skip, like guess on the last few questions, because you
Mm-hmm.
obviously don't want to leave a question unanswered because you'll get penalized.
Yeah.
In the quant section, I left one question unanswered because I was so anxious and I clicked it so many times that when that last 1 second went to zero, I had unclicked my
Oh my.
answer. In my ESR, it shows that I have only answered 30 questions in quants. So, again, I don't know if the timing issue was because the clock was running when that,
Mm-hmm.
then when that screen was reconnecting. So it was like a technical thing, or if it was just that because it was happening again and again, I was losing track of, like I was losing my flow, and I
Mm-hmm.
was spending time going back to the question. So especially for things like RC,
Mm-hmm.
if you're
Yeah.
thinking of an answer and you're considering different statements, and then your screen goes blank,
It does. It
then
does. It
yeah,
disrupts
I
the
mean,
flow and the
it
process.
disrupts the flow, because if you're reading a sentence and it goes blank and then it comes back, you'll take a few seconds to,
Yeah.
you know, bring yourself back to that
Mm-hmm.
question. In quants, it's not that difficult, because if you're solving a question, you can continue solving.
Yeah.
With verbal, it was difficult. With IR, it was very difficult because
Mm-hmm.
you have to refer to those graphs and everything.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It happened in IR also. So so that was my experience,
And
and because
you
of that,
you didn't want to do AWAIR, I think. That is what you told
yeah,
me.
so because of that, I had a feeling in my heart that I am doing really bad, and I'm doing bad not because my ability is not to do these questions. I realize that I have prepared so well that I can solve these questions. It's that in this today I am not at my best, and I had resigned to the thought when I was completing IR. I did, like, with IR I was okay, I was doing the questions. um I was like, I will have to do a retake anyway, because this is probably going to give me like a 710, 720, and that's great, but I know I can do better. So there are these external factors that are causing my bad performance today, so
Mm-hmm.
I will take a retake. And so when I reached the point of AWA, I had like a slight headache, because
You hadn't.
3 hours is the exam, and then 1 hour we waited. I came to the center 1 hour before that time also, and I had something to eat half an hour before that. So I had
Mm-hmm.
been hungry for really long. Your brain was using a lot of energy. So by the time AWA came, I had a headache, and I was like, you know what, just let's not do this. I didn't feel like doing AWA at all. I was just ready to give up, because I was like, मेरे को retake देना ही पड़ेगा. I
Mm-hmm.
will have to give the retake. Let me just go home and sleep.
Mm-hmm.
I think at that point, I heard other people typing. I could hear their keyboard, and I think I had like a moment of FOMO, where I was like, सब लिख रहे हैं तो मैं भी लिख देती हूँ. And I know that I did. So I used to do AWA in my mocks also, even though they're not
Mandate. Hmm.
evaluated. I used to do that. I know that my D-Day D-Day AWA was like 2 levels lower than what I did in mocks, because I was like, हाँ बस लिखने के लिए बस लिख दो. But like, I did the argument analysis and all of that, but like I was like, just let me just be done with this. Let me
Yeah.
just be done with this. I did that, and I clicked on submit, and then the score came in front of me and was a 740. And I swear I did not expect that. I was totally prepared for a 700, if not lower, because I skipped about 4 to 5 questions in both quants and verbal, and I didn't answer one question in quants at all. And
Yep. Thank God
I
for the FOMO.
I was so thankful to FOMO. I was so glad that I I did not lose the score. I was glad that I got a very competitive score in the first attempt.
Yeah.
I was glad that at this point, even if I don't take a retake, even if at that point, I did feel like I'm capable of doing even better.
Yeah.
Is having such a bad experience on the day, if I did well, I could have touched my 760 mock score or
Yeah.
done even better than that.
Yeah.
But even if I don't do that, I can still apply to my dream colleges,
Mm-hmm.
the top, business schools. I have a good GMAT score,
Yeah.
and so that was my
What a journey, right? I remember reading that mail that you sent to me after the test, and I'm reading. It was like a story, a saga. And the moment I came to that line wherein you said I was thinking of giving up on AW, I'm like, oh my God.
I
But
know,
yeah, I
I
think
know.
it all is well that ends well.
Yeah,
Right?
definitely.
So what a journey. So Rhythm, would you want to share maybe some 2, 3 tips for the other GMAT aspirants out there as to how do you go ahead and conquer the GMAT?
I think apart from everything that I've already talked about that worked for me,
Mm-hmm.
a few things that are really important for a GMAT prep journey. One is consistency, very important, very
Mm-hmm.
important. You need to have break days as well, like you need to have rest days,
Mm-hmm.
but you need to be consistent in just going back to it and doing it, like doing the
Mm-hmm.
questions, doing the lessons, doing whatever it is that you have to do. There would be days when I would not feel like doing it at all.
Mm-hmm.
It's not possible to have motivation every day, but you need to have discipline.
Mm-hmm.
Consistency and discipline are very important in a GMAT prep journey. And the second thing that really helped me was I used to work out every day.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I think in my life, I haven't been as consistent with working out as I was when I was preparing for GMAT,
Mm-hmm.
because it was a release of sorts.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it was and when I worked out, I wasn't just doing strengthening condition, as I was doing dance fitness,
Mm-hmm.
and dancing is something that I like. So it's hectic.
Mm-hmm.
GMAT prep is hectic. So you need to have that one activity that gives you some sort of release, and
Mm-hmm.
preferably also gets your body moving, because your brain is working a lot, your
Yep.
mind is working a lot. You need to balance it out with body movements.
Mm-hmm.
So that really kept me fresh, and it helped with me being consistent. um, Given that I was consistent with my prep and I was working out, I having a routine helped.
Mm-hmm.
uh,
Mm-hmm.
so that is something that people should consider. I would also do like a 5 minute um, meditation of sorts before
Mm-hmm.
I would start studying. But I would
Mm-hmm.
just focus on, okay, I'm going to start studying. So let me just bring all of my focus to studying.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I won't say that I was as regular with it as I was with working out, but it was also something that
That
helped.
helped.
So, I mean, these are just additional tips.
Yes.
Apart from that, one very important thing is to focus on learning,
Mm-hmm.
have a learning mindset, because you're going to falter, you're going to make mistakes, you're going to make errors, you're going to make mistakes that you don't expect yourself to make.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, you're going to have like a bad performance in a quiz or a mock or something like that. And through that, to get through that, it is important for you to know that these falters, these little dips are important because I'm learning. That
Yes.
learning mindset is very important, because if you go into that spiral of, oh, I'm not worth it, or I'm spent so much time doing this and still last time I got a 760, now I'm getting a 710, what does this mean, like
Hmm.
I can do this. If you go into that spiral, um it's not only not going to help you, it will actually make it worse.
Yep.
So I think what helped me in my case was to just remind myself again and again that
Mm-hmm.
this part of my journey is also important, because it'll help me learn more. If
Mm-hmm.
I don't do this, I'm not going to learn the things that I don't know about.
Yeah.
So making mistakes, um, getting a bad performance, all of that is very important. And just remember that you're learning this
Yes.
you're just growing.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
you'll
very
get there.
well said, I think. Every setback, if you take it as a learning opportunity, then you can just grow from there.
Yeah, yeah,
And I think your journey from that, we can take it as 580 or 640, but that is a testament to that. So thank you so much for taking your time out to share your journey with us. It's been a beautiful thing, and I'm really glad that it ended in a positive note. So
yeah, Me too. Thank
Thank
you
you.
so much, Rashmi. I would like specifically want to thank you because you were right there with me throughout my journey. And when I would do bad, I would message you, I would like mail you and be like, I don't know what I'm doing. Why am I taking so long? Or why am I not doing well in this particular topic? And you would always come back with like very constructive feedback and like a plan. And that structure really helped me. So yeah, thank you so much. I
Mm.
do
It has been a pleasure.
you know, this score that I've got, you have a role to play in that.
It's been my pleasure, Ridam. And I wish you all the very best in your all your future endeavors. And
Thank
yeah,
you. Thank you so much.
congratulations again.